A year ago today, I had no idea how much my life was about to change. In 24 hours, I'd be called to my parents' house to get my mom into an ambulance. And in 36 hours, I would be saying goodbye, thinking goodbye, like she used to think to me. When we have dysregulated family members, and when we have our own dysregulated nervous systems, that causes a lot of harm. I didn't know that feeling of loneliness and defection that I felt my whole life was likely due to being born 2 months early and not having a real attuned caregiver. Um, I was in an incubator and separated hospitals from my mom, but and when I did get to my mom, she was explosive. And if you don't, I have a part of me is very guilty for saying that. And if you don't know that, you didn't know her. And if you, and I don't need to protect anybody except myself for now, because my whole life, without knowing it, I was not expressing or letting out my needs. I was self-destructing. I was attuning to my mom and not listening to my voice. I literally heard her in my head until I was in my third. Dysregulation and dysregulation that comes at dysregulation comes at a cost, and dysregulation that is so lonely and isolating and misunderstood and judged and shamed and pathologized. I was silent. I was quiet. I I didn't make trouble when I was a kid. And then I did because I was not doing things because I was living literally my mom's life, what she wanted for me only. And when, and then I became an addict, alcoholic, and then I sobered up and found polyvagal theory and safe EMDR and IFS and spirituality in a new way. And there's a couple of things that I think are really important. The first one is, especially around children, it's really up to adults to be that co-regulator, to be solid as often as we can. And we also need to keep self-compassion on board. And I say that knowing a lot of us don't come from an era of perfectionism and pushing, and otherwise you're weak. my life has been hard, and it has been hard because of my childhood and my nervous system and my inability to feel my body that could have been from being in an incubator and separated from my mom. But all I know is I've been yearning and grasping from above and trying to pull spirituality down into me. And that is not how it works. It's very, very slowly and very much listening that we become safe if we have been in a chronic state of fight or flight or freeze or collapse. We know we need to move through the hierarchy according to polyvagal theory of, if we are collapsed, we're going to move through sympathetic activation before we go back to the ventral parasympathetic, uh, safe and connectedness. And often that is hard because that is so much energy for me. That's why I became an addict. That's why I drank, and then ran and so we need to be co-regulators and we need self-compassion on board. And we also need to reconnect with our bodies, our purpose. And our purpose lives in us. And our purpose is felt. And it's almost as if energy needed to come and erupt from below me in order for me to understand energy at all in an embodied way. And I've been a therapist for a very long time, but in 2016 I got sober after a real hard time, and now I am doing DBR, deep brain reorienting, which has helped me immensely with both pain and shock that I have been holding in my body and my face. And I want to go quickly, but I also, as things release, emotion comes, and it's a lot. So it's really important that we connect with our bodies, that our minds, that our self, that our awareness connects with our bodies. Once we become embodied and somatically aware and unafraid to look inside, we can listen and we can hear what we need and we can feel the presence of everything. But it has to come from inside. It has to come from in here. And I didn't know that until recently. So I have an invitation. That invitation is to get grounded. It's to orient. And it's to start really, really slowly to come into your bodies, to feel, to notice to just notice and then don't notice anymore. To pendulate, to name what nervous system state you're in, and to get to know how to change states. That's how we become safe in our body. We practice. And so deep brain reorienting is worth looking into if you're a therapist or a client. But somatic and attachment focused EMDR with PTI is it's amazing. And it's how I understood my patterns were adaptive at first. And then polyvagal theory really is in line with adaptive information processing theory. And so it is really looking at behaviors as adaptive and also understanding that we are trying to survive primarily. And when we're not trying to survive, we're healing. Like when we are not in a survival response, our bodies are like oriented to healing. And that is also clear when I begin to feel. So there's a picture I have in my head of a balloon with my face. My head is a balloon way up there. And I'm holding the string, headless, head up there. Not it. And that represents how I lived my life until pretty recently. Within the last 5 years, I learned how to come into my body. And it has taken a very long time, but that is the way. That is the way. You may find relief in other ways of being and spirituality and religion or whatever, and that's great. What I want to offer you is my experience and expertise, and that is that we need to feel safe enough to come into our bodies. Feeling safe enough takes initiation, effort, intention, and daily practice. It doesn't just happen. And we need to feel safe in our bodies because it's our responsibility to co-regulate with children, with everyone. And once we feel safe enough in our bodies, the view becomes a lot clearer from above. And deep brain reorienting is something that has it's really interesting and helpful for me and exciting. And if we can speak the brain as therapists, if we can speak brainstem to brainstem with our clients, we will be healers. And listen to your intuition, and if you aren't connected to your bodies, it is okay, and you can be.